What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Sean O'Malley reacts to Joe Rogan Backlash. Longtime UFC commentator Joe Rogan recently caught heat from many members of the MMA community after he dismissed other MMA promotions, indicating that he believes fighters competing elsewhere are wasting their careers. At the time, Rogan fielded quite a bit of criticism, with former UFC fighter Corey Anderson notably calling out the longtime commentator. During a recent video for his YouTube channel, bantamweight champion Sugar Sean O'Malley shared his thoughts on the situation, agreeing with Rogan's take as a whole.
Joe Rogan warns fighters outside the UFC they are wasting their careers because no one is watching. I mean, that's what he said, but it sounds worse when you just read like a headline and something like that. But yeah, he's saying it's like, God, if you're a professional fighter, you want to be in the UFC. You want to be in the UFC, even if you're not getting paid as much. You have bigger opportunity for sponsors. You know, more eyeballs are on you.
Of course, with PFL looking to make strides and the ongoing antitrust suits against the UFC, the landscape of the MMA industry could begin to change in the next few years. However, despite all the criticism that Rogan faced, it's clear that the UFC stands alone atop the MMA industry right now. Now, let's shift gears and take a look at Chael Sonnen not happy with Bull Nickal fight. After seeing Bull Nickal rattle off back-to-back wins in 2023, Chael Sonnen is ready to see Nickal compete against higher quality opponents. With the former NCAA standout emerging as a negative 1,450 favorite over Cody Brundage at UFC 300, Sonnen questioned why the UFC isn't putting Nickal into more competitive fights. While speaking in a video for his YouTube channel, Sonnen took aim at the matchmaking, wondering what it will take for the wrestling phenom to finally get a step up in competition.
Saying, why are we doing this? There is no reason to do this fight. And I'm just looking at trying to understand, is this a number situation? Do we need to get Bo X amount of fights before he goes in for a title? Do we need to get Bo X amount of fights before he goes into a top 5? Do we need to get him X amount of fights before he goes into a rankings match?
As Nickal had previously indicated on a recent episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, after his fight with Brundage, he wants to compete against somebody just outside of the middleweight rankings, before then setting his sights on a ranked fighter before the end of the year. With Nickal targeting 3 fights for 2024, this year could wind up being a massive one for the undefeated prospect. Next up, let's take a look at Aljo breaks silence on Sean O'Malley pay-per-view numbers. Former bantamweight champion Aljamain recently spoke on his YouTube channel to reflect on his UFC 292 fight with Sugar Sean O'Malley. Although heading into the fight, Sterling was confident that he would be in for a massive payday given how big of a pay-per-view star O'Malley had been touted as. When he received the pay-per-view numbers, they were underwhelming. In a recent video for his YouTube channel, Sterling responded to fans who criticized him for being dependent on O'Malley to sell the card.
Can we talk about the pay-per-view numbers? I forgot to touch on this in the last podcast. Because I got hit with some people saying, oh, they were blaming me. Guys, I never once claimed to be a pay-per-view star. I get paid my money. I'm happy with that. I would love to make more money and be in a pay-per-view star. But I've never once go out on parade and like, yeah, I show all these kind of crazy pay-per-views. The UFC needs me. I don't do that. The one guy who did it was the guy with the colorful hair. I mean, even though my hair is colorful right now. But you guys get my point.
As Sterling also indicated, considering how the card performed on pay-per-view, the paycheck he received for the fight wasn't the highest or lowest payout of his career. With the new year underway, Sterling will now have the chance to become an even bigger star as he pursues gold in a new division. Next, let's take a look at Makhachev will avoid Arman Tsarukyan fight. After Arman Tsarukyan's big win over Beneil Dariush, the streaking contender indicated during his post-fight Octagon interview with Daniel Cormier that he believes he would knock out Makhachev in the rematch. Despite that, Makhachev has since stated he would rather compete against a new opponent, like Justin Gaethje, rather than running things back with a fighter he's already defeated, like Tsarukyan or Charles Oliveira. The way Dan Hooker sees things, Makhachev will do everything in his power to avoid a rematch with Tsarukyan. He spoke on the MMA Hour to share his thoughts on the fight, predicting that the champ could even go so far as to retire before taking the rematch.
They had a pretty close fight.
Sure.
In the first one. Yeah, he can beat him.
He's gone a lot.
He ain't gonna fight him. I guarantee he'll retire. He'll retire by the time Arman gets there for sure. Too risky. There's too much risk. There's too many other easier fights out there. Like you'd rather fight. There's easier fights out there.
As Hooker indicated, a pay-per-view headlined by a lightweight clash between Makhachev and Tsarukyan Also, wouldn't sell nearly as well as a pay-per-view headlined by a fight between Makhachev and Justin Gaethje or Conor McGregor. With Makhachev likely out until Ramadan, it'll be interesting to see who he winds up competing against in his next title defense. Next, let's take a look at MMA community roasts Dana White for UFC 297. Fans have been eagerly awaiting the return of the UFC in the new year. After closing out December with a big UFC 296 pay-per-view card, the promotion went on hiatus until the upcoming Ankalaev vs. Walker 2 card. The following week, the UFC will host its first pay-per-view card of 2024 on January 20th, where Sean Strickland will look to defend his middleweight title for the first time against Dricus du Plessis. Despite the bad blood between the two men, it sounds as though the MMA community isn't impressed with the card as a whole. In response to a screenshot of the main card, one fan wrote, "This is a pay-per-view?" While another wrote, "This card is pretty terrible. 5, maybe 5.5. Another pointed to the fact that the UFC has once again left Canadian fans disappointed, writing, "Why is Canada always getting the most cards, man? Great headliner, but other than that, WTF, not as bad as the Vancouver card." Another agreed with the sentiment, writing, "It's so funny that this is what the UFC is giving Toronto for the first card here in 9 years. Are they mad at us?" Another pointed out that the card in the screenshot didn't reflect the latest update, which saw Carlos Ulberg vs. Dominic Reyes forced off the card. 2 out of 10. They even lost the Ulberg-Reyes fight. Looking forward to see Evloev dominate Allen though, hoping for a Magny upset, and I think Sean stops Dricus. Another member of the MMA community took aim at the UFC as a whole for a disappointing 2023, writing, "2023 has been a terrible year for the UFC, and they seem to continue that in 2024. In addition, it's important to mention that the card also lost a fight between Jan Blachowicz and Alexander Rakic, marking just one of several significant blows that have been dealt to the card." Next, let's take a look at Sean O'Malley reacts to Conor McGregor fight. Prior to Conor McGregor's big New Year's announcement, Sugar Sean O'Malley had indicated that he felt as though anything other than a Conor McGregor headliner for UFC 300 would be somewhat disappointing. In the wake of the announcement that McGregor would be fighting at the UFC's International Fight Week card over the summer rather than UFC 300, O'Malley reacted to the news on a recent episode of the Timbo Sugar Show.
Holy sh**. Conor McGregor just announced UFC, I don't even know what it would be, International Fight Week, June or July 29th or some 185, Michael Chandler. He announced it on his Twitter and then he went ha 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 ha, ha, which was f***ing hilarious. Do you think it's true? Do you think he's serious?
And now, I wonder if Dana's scrambling for the UFC 300 main event.
Although he and Welsh expressed some uncertainty over whether the fight would actually take place at 185 pounds, it sounds as though that will in fact be the case. Aljamain Sterling was quick to crack a joke in a video for his YouTube channel.
Wait, hold on. How about this? Let's juice them both the f up and put some needles in their ass cheeks and let them get in there and scrap. How about that, guys? Come on, guys.
While McGregor has previously competed as high as welterweight, a middleweight bout would certainly be a first for both men. Next up, let's take a look at Paddy Pimblett won't win a UFC title? Paddy Pimblett has remained one of the most polarizing prospects in the sport. After winning gold in Cage Warriors, Pimblett made his UFC debut in 2021, rattling off 3 wins the following year before suffering an ankle injury against Jared Gordon that kept him out of action until his recent UFC 296 clash with Tony Ferguson. Although the baddie was able to secure the victory, many were left unimpressed given that he was unable to put away the former interim champ. With Pimblett turning 29 on January 3rd, it's hard to call him an up-and-coming prospect. The way Paul Felder sees things, at this stage of the baddie's career, he hasn't shown enough to indicate that he can be a top-ranked fighter. He spoke on the UFC's Roundup show with Michael Chiesa, where he answered a fan question.
Can Paddy beat anyone in the top 15? I'll start with this. Of course he can, right? We know that it's MMA, anything can happen. But if we were going to sit here and make bets, and if I had to predict, I think there's very few. No, I really don't think so. I mean, he struggled to get a Tony out of there who looked the worst he's ever looked in his career. You know, he was able to hurt Tony a little bit, but man, he really should have been able to put him away, man. And
with Pimblett and his wife expecting twins, the streaking Scouser has indicated that he's hoping to return in the summer. However, so far, there's been no word from the UFC on who he could wind up facing. The MMA community reacts to Paddy Pimblett already being fat again. Just 15 days after his fight at UFC 296, it looks like Paddy has already put on a considerable amount of weight. Here's what the community had to say about his weight gain. Holy f, bro, how are you huge already? How the F did he gain weight already? Bro, this dude gains weight faster than anyone I've ever seen. Freak of nature. How the hell do you gain that much weight in 15 days? I don't understand how this is humanly possible. Guys sucking butter out of straw at this point. Conor McGregor released new footage of him doing a kick, showing that he's actively in camp for the Michael Chandler fight. Here's the clip. Michael Chandler also posted to Twitter saying, "In camp, woke up feeling dangerous." Top comments. Conor gonna make Chandler go up to 185, then not fight him just to call him fat. Sad that Chandler even responded to that sad excuse of an Austin Powers laugh. Conor says a lot. Only believe what comes out of Dana's mouth. Gullible goblins. The irony of Aljo about an unrealistic fighting style when he patented the face down ass up position in MMA so as to skirt the rules. LMAO. I agree with Aljo. The butt scooting game is lame AF. It's literally a tactic for people who suck at wrestling / takedowns. Before you bash me in the comments, read that 3 times, then tell me I'm wrong. I'll be surprised if Gagey isn't on 300. Make sure to leave a comment and you might get featured in our next video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to never miss any MMA news. Check out our video from yesterday if you missed it. See you tomorrow.